Welcome everybody to another episode of Evan Writes. Today we have another fun challenge video. This video was inspired by a video done by Dr. Writing along with quite a few other author tubers. And it was a challenge originally created by Dr. Writing. This was the creature creation tag. Now, I went ahead and made some adjustments to the original tag because I wasn't necessarily a fan of the worksheet that they worked off of, so I went ahead and made my own that lends a little bit better to a design standpoint, at least in my opinion. So I went ahead and did that. Then I made a few other changes to this tag. Basically, the idea is that I, along with two other author tubers who are participating in this challenge, Tommy and Lilith, are both going to be participating in this challenge with me. All three of us will have to come up with a creature based on the worksheet that I created, and after we create that creature, we're supposed to draw it. Now that is pretty true to the challenge that Dr. Writing came up with. Now how it is different though is for the second part of the video. Now both Lilith and I are making a single video. Tommy ended up making two. Lilith and I just kind of ran out of time to end up making two separate videos, so we're doing it all in one. But the idea is that after we create that, we took our creatures and we swapped them with each other, and then we had to write a story based on somebody else's creature. So in this video, I will be sharing with you my creature that I created in the first part of this video, and then in the second part of this video, I will be writing a story based on Tommy's created creature, which I am really excited to do because it sounds like a fun creature to do, and it reminds me a little bit of the Cathay from The Name of the Wind and the Wise Man's Fear, which I just finished reading, so I kind of had that stuck in my head, and I'm really excited for this challenge. I hope you all enjoy. If you enjoyed this video at all and you feel like you'd like to do something similar, go ahead and do so. I will provide a link to the original document below in the description if you want to go and get the questions and do the same thing with other author tubers or by yourself. It's perfectly fine to write a story based on your own created character. That is very, very fine as well. I hope you will enjoy this video, and let's go ahead and roll the intro. Now to start this all off, the very first step is to create a description of our character based on the information in the worksheet that I created. Now, the very first question is, what is the creature's habitat? For the creature I created, I decided to do a creature from the Arctic wild, a snowy landscape. The next question was, what is the creature's intelligence level? Now, this could range from anything from human-like intelligence to a feral creature to a robot to anything like that. For my creature, I decided it would be very fun to go ahead and do a straight up feral creature with animalistic tendencies. That way is a straight up monster pretty much. The next question was, what is the creature's nature? Now this tends to be something like, is the creature mystical? Are they magical? Are they beast-like? Are they loyal? Are they friendly to humans? What is their base nature? Pretty much, are they dangerous? Are they intelligent? Are they comfortable with humans? And for this one, I decided to go with a creature of a dark animalistic nature. The next question is, how does this character interact with humanity? This is one of the questions that I feel was lacking a little bit in DR's original character sheet, that I feel was a fun extra question to add to the mix to kind of get that feeling for that character. As for my specific creature, it is a wild creature who is difficult or nearly impossible to tame, and most people avoid these creatures because of how feral they tend to be and how dangerous it is to interact with them. The last one is to pick an animal or two to base the design off of. I decided to base mine off of a deer and also to base it off of a bird. So it is sort of a mix between those two. I'm going to go ahead and show my creature up on the screen here in a minute. But based off of that description, there's only one last thing to deal with, and that is, does this creature have any special abilities or any other traits that are important to the story? And for mine, it has the ability to conceal itself resembling invisibility but more like camouflage. And that tends to only be in Arctic areas because that's where it lives. So if it goes into a forest or something, it'll probably still stick out like a sore thumb. But in an Arctic area, it tends to be able to blend into the environment very well and can sort of shift itself to shape itself to the environment a little bit more, which was kind of a fun little thing I wanted to do for whoever got my creature. And as for the other special traits of my creature, I decided it's more of like a trickster, impish creature, and it's known as the Chagrin. Anyway, this is my creature. I'm going to go ahead and show it on the screen right now. It was really fun to draw. I don't do creatures very often. I'm not the best at drawing animals and creatures, but I had a lot of fun with it. I hope you enjoy this drawing. Anyway, let's go ahead and get to part 2 of the video, which is Tommy Doolan's creature and what I have to write about him. So his creature is basically a creature that lives in a decaying mausoleum, an ancient graveyard type of place. It has the intelligence level of a human, and it can interact with people just like any other normal person could. And it has sort of a trickster, dark, mystical, mysterious type nature. So in a way, it is kind of an intelligently dangerous being. It doesn't necessarily have to be physically imposing, though in the story I wrote it is as well, but its intelligence and the way it can manipulate its abilities and trick people is what makes it really dangerous. The next thing is how it interacts with humanity. It is used as a keeper of souls. It ends up talking with the dead, and it's able to see into the future. And this is a cool thing that Tommy included, in that the creature only tells the truth as far as it helps the creature. So it will only give partial truths, even though it will never tell a lie, but those partial truths might lead a person to do the wrong kind of things, which is what makes this creature so dangerous. It's like a double-edged sword. Yes, you can get the information you need, but you never know what that will lead to, which is why that reminded me a lot of the Cathay that I just read about. And it has the body of a werewolf and the head of a Nubian ibex. I don't know if I said that right, but it's an Arabian animal that's very similar to a mountain goat with really long curved horns. I'm going to go ahead and put up Tommy's drawing right now so you can see what his drawing shows, what it looks like. You can go ahead and go over to his channel to see his video as well. I will link that below, as well as Lilith's page, so you can see Lilith's take on this challenge as well. Basically, aside from that, we just know that he can see the dead and manipulate the future to his will because he knows the future. This is a really fun story, and I hope you like it. Flickering ash fell from the end of a cigarette held casually by a gloved hand, promptly snuffed out underfoot. The bearded man rubbed it further into the dirt for good measure. His eyes were cool, calculating. His graying hair left few precious strands tinged with their former dark brown color. The rest bore a familiar smoky gray, flecked with white, much like the speckling on the end of his cigarette. His life grew ever shorter, snuffed out piece by piece with the appearance of every new gray hair. If smoking wouldn't kill him, age sure as hell would. Rowan pushed his thoughts of life and death aside and pressed forward through the damp morning air. Gravestones surrounded him on all sides, a thick layer of dust and Spanish moss from the surrounding trees collecting on each of the individual slabs. Time had forgotten those buried here, as had their own people. In the years to come, all remaining traces of their existence would be wiped from this world, buried for the last and final time in a tomb of rising dust and decay. His boots slashed up water as he trudged through the wet marshland that housed the forgotten graveyard. His eyes darted quickly from gravestone to gravestone. Were rumors to be believed, he would find what he was looking for near a distinctly marked grave. The thing would be hidden by both man and, by now, nature. Finding it would be tricky. Roan reached into the inner pocket of his trench coat. He rather liked his old trench coat, with its high collar and fading dark gray leather adding to his aging but menacing look. Wearing it certainly didn't hurt his reputation any. Some considered it his calling card. He pulled out a slip of old parchment, stained by time and ink. His fingers grazed naturally over his .44 caliber dragoon revolver. Unfolding the parchment, he read, Inés Bonisacar, died in the 44th year of the king, to be remembered fondly. About an hour later, Rowan finally spotted the name on a small, half-broken grave sitting alone near the top of a small hill. He felt around the edges at the base of the grave marker until his fingers rested on small notches. He pushed forward, moving the grave and several inches of soggy dirt forward a short distance. Then he lifted up, and the gravestone flipped up along with a large human-sized trapdoor. He dislodged a branch from a nearby tree and wrapped its tip in a bulk of mostly dry Spanish moss hanging from the same tree. It would do well for kindling. He pulled a flint and a small knife from a pouch on his belt and used it to strike a flame. He quickly replaced the items into his pouch. Roan readied himself, drawing his coat around him, and descended down the crumbling staircase he had just revealed below Enos's grave marker. The walls creeping on either side of him laid out unevenly, bloating inward in various segments until the tightness threatened to suffocate him. Marshlands were far from ideal locations for below-ground structures. Had he left it alone, the structure would have eventually buried itself beneath layers of water and stone. As it currently stood, the stone bricks on either side were consumed in algae of a dark greenish-brown color. It was slimy to the touch and also covered the stairs. He descended slowly, carefully laying each step as to not trip. Due to the nature of the cellar, there were no handholds along the walls, and the slick algae covering every surface wouldn't provide nearly enough friction to slow a hasty descent. So he progressed slowly. Once he reached the bottom, the air opened up into a spacious room. He glanced around in the dim firelight, analyzing his surroundings. It appeared that he had descended into an older section of the graveyard, perhaps the original graveyard from hundreds of years before the marsh had crept over the land. Above him, the ceiling was partially caved in a convex shape. A steady stream of water dripped from the center of the looming ceiling. Tree roots from the varieties of Spanish moss and other water-hungry trees seemed to be the only things holding the roof in place. Surprisingly, the gravestones here were kept in a much better condition than those above. Not that they were nice per se, but they were at least nicer, more legible. Roan was in the process of lighting another one of his cigarettes when he laid eyes on what he had come all this way to find: the underground mausoleum. Were rumor to be believed, this is where he would find the Doolan, a mythical creature with the ability to speak to the dead and see into an individual's future. Roan stepped casually into the mausoleum. It wasn't overly large, only containing about 3 coffin-like structures on either wall. Straight ahead sat an enormous statue of a demon. It was so large that its back bent against the ceiling of the mausoleum and forced its upper body to tower above the coffins. 2 large horns curved from the back of its goat-like head and looped near the creature's legs. "It's been a while since I've had visitors," echoed a voice. Roan looked around mechanically, attempting to locate the origin of the voice. The building shook and dust fell around him. He coughed. "I have come in search of something," said Roan, his voice loud, as he was unsure which direction to direct his voice. "I am told there lives a being here who knows all things." "I know why you're here." The room shook again. Only then did Roan notice the eyes of the statue above him open. It wasn't the statue, but the creature. It had remained motionless for who knows how long, and eventually became so covered in the dust of the cavern that its body and fur were covered in a coating of solid gray. His eyes, however, were a deep brown, his pupils rectangular. The creature's pupils focused to a point and retreat from the firelight, but its gaze did not leave Roan. For a man as large as he was, Roan wasn't used to feeling small. Standing there in the dark and cramped cavern below this creature's immense size, however, Roan had never felt so tiny. Still, he was here for something, and he wasn't going to leave without it. He had a promise to fulfill, and by the gods he would fulfill it even if it meant losing his own life. "It's taken me years to find you," said Rowan. "It's strange you found me this day. Your future showed more possibilities of you not finding my home for years to come. The present was almost the least likely of them all. Tell me, do you feel lucky?" "Luck has nothing to do with why I'm here, but I expect you already know this." The creature shook, lifting the top of the mausoleum off of the walls as its massive body stretched upward. Piles of dust fell over Roan, who covered his mouth and face with his trench coat as a response. The creature must have stood nearly 15 feet tall, a single one of its horns larger than a man and a half. "True. I know your deepest desire. I know why you're here. Would you like me to speak to your sister for you, or did you wish to make a formal request first?" Roan scowled. So it is true. She was here when she died. I believe so, yes. In fact, I believe I was the one to kill her. I must say, eating her eyes out of her head and draining her body of life after she had finally received the answer she had been looking for, well, I must say, I live for that. The creature grinned. It rose wide across its face, feeling unnatural, as Rowan wasn't used to animals smiling. Its eyes flashed knowingly toward him. Its tongue leaked between yellowing, flat teeth. Your silence irritates me. I haven't received visitors in many years. Tell me what it is you desire, and I will bequeath you your request. You won't get me as easily as that, devil. I never go into anything unprepared. I know you can speak to the dead. I know you can reach into a person's future. But I also know you thrive off of the lives of those you serve knowledge to. If I do not ask, you cannot kill me. Your information is incorrect. I can see all your futures. The creature stretched out and let its body relax, hunching over Rowan. It reminded Rowan of the werewolves he had hunted back when he traveled through Esher, only much more dangerous. In none of them will you leave here alive. And in none of your futures will you be reunited with your sister. Tell me, Rowan's hand uncuffed the buckle holding his revolver. Can you see your future? Well, I hope you enjoyed that story. Once again, it's another unedited story of mine, and there's a lot that went into it. I actually really wanted to write more to it, but I was running out of time, and I haven't had a lot of sleep this week, and I need to sleep soon, so I decided to stop there at a fun cliffhanger. If you guys feel like you want more, then that's good. It means I write okay sometimes, and I hope it was at least a fun story. If you like this video, go ahead and like and subscribe to my channel, as well as check out Tommy's and Lilith's channels and subscribe to them as well. They also throw out a lot of fun videos and writing related content. And if you'd like to follow me on social media, I am on Twitter and on Instagram at YT_Evan_Writes.